Pennywise, the menacing clown from Stephen King's It, is actually a physical manifestation of a much older and more terrifying entity known simply as It. To fully understand Pennywise's origins, we need to delve into King's mythology and the universe he created, particularly the macroverse, a cosmic plane of existence where godlike beings exist, beyond the comprehension of ordinary humans. Or Pennywise is an ancient, cosmic entity from this macroverse, a dimension outside the known universe. It is a malevolent being whose origins stretch back billions of years, long before humans existed on Earth. It is described as a shape-shifting, eldritch creature, but its true form is incomprehensible to the human mind. What humans see is only a projection or an avatar of its real self. The closest interpretation of its true form is referred to as the deadlights, three powerful glowing lights that can drive anyone who looks directly at them to madness or even death. Millions, perhaps even billions of years ago, it crash-landed on Earth in what would eventually become the town of Derry, Maine. This crash caused a massive, cataclysmic event, akin to a meteor strike, creating a vast crater. The entity slumbered beneath the surface for eons, waiting for the right time to awaken. When human civilization began to develop in the area, it awoke from its hibernation and began feeding. The creature discovered that it particularly enjoyed feasting on the fear and despair of living beings, especially children, whose fears it could manipulate more easily. In fact, fear salts the meat, making the flesh of its victims even more enjoyable. Its preferred prey became children because their imaginations are more vivid, making their fears much easier to exploit. It is a shapeshifter, meaning it can take the form of anything that its victim fears most. Over time, it realized that a clown, an image meant to bring joy and laughter, was especially terrifying to many children. Thus, it took on the persona of Pennywise the dancing clown. However, Pennywise is just one of many forms that it uses to lure and terrify its victims. Over the centuries, it has appeared as various terrifying figures based on the greatest fears of the time. For instance, it has taken the form of a leper, a mummy, and even a giant bird, depending on what scares its prey the most. The clown persona allows it to lure children with a false sense of security before feeding on their fear. Pennywise's bright, cheerful exterior is the perfect contrast to its true nature, making its attacks even more shocking and effective. It has a very specific feeding cycle. Every 27 to 30 years, it awakens from its slumber to feed on the residents of Derry. This cycle usually begins with a tragedy or catastrophe, such as a mass killing or an accident, often brought on by the entity's influence. After consuming enough souls and leaving behind a wave of chaos, it retreats back into the sewers and slumbers for another few decades. Interestingly, it's not just a physical entity but also exerts a psychological influence over Derry. Many of the adults in the town are apathetic, indifferent, or outright ignorant of the evil around them, almost as if it has cast a spell over the whole town. This apathy allows it to continue feeding without interference. In Stephen King's It, a group of children known as the Losers Club are the first ones to discover Pennywise's true nature. Through their collective fearlessness and determination, they eventually confront the entity. They realize that it feeds on fear and that by standing together and facing their fears, they can weaken it. During their battle, the losers perform the ritual of Chud, an ancient ceremony meant to defeat interdimensional beings like it. The ritual is a mental and spiritual battle of wills where the participants must laugh in the face of terror to win. In both the 1950s and again in the 1980s, the losers face Pennywise in his various forms, eventually wounding it enough to force it back into hibernation. However, it is not truly defeated until the group returns as adults to finish what they started, engaging in a final battle to destroy it for good. While its true origins are in the macroverse, Stephen King presents it as an embodiment of existential fear and chaos. It exists as a malevolent force representing primal fears, death, loss, madness. The deadlights, its true form, are representative of the unknown, the incomprehensible terror of facing something beyond human understanding. It is suggested that it, along with other cosmic beings in King's universe, exists as part of a balance between chaos and order. One such cosmic force is the turtle, a benevolent entity who represents creation and order in contrast to its chaos and destruction. The turtle is said to have created the universe, and in the story, the turtle indirectly helps the losers defeat Pennywise by giving them guidance through visions. The eternal struggle between these forces adds a mythological layer to Pennywise's character, implying that it is a fundamental part of the universe's darker aspects. Although Pennywise is ultimately defeated by the Losers Club, the entity leaves behind a lasting impact on Derry and the town's history. Throughout the book, King implies that Derry is a cursed place, eternally marked by its presence. Tragedies continue to happen, and some fans of the story theorize that even though the physical form of it is destroyed, some dark essence of Pennywise might always remain in Derry. The character of Pennywise has become one of the most iconic villains in horror because it taps into universal fears. The fear of the unknown, the fear of clowns, a common phobia, and the fear of things that disguise themselves as harmless but are actually predatory. King created a figure who can be interpreted not just as a terrifying clown but as a representation of the cosmic, unimaginable horrors that exist just beyond human understanding.